How does Sheila's character develop during the course of the play? Sheila's character develops a great deal during the course of the play, and she grows from a naive and childlike figure into a confident young woman. At the start of the play, the audience see that Sheila is a dutiful daughter, and she acts in a way that is respectful and good-natured towards both her parents. When Mrs. Burling rather needlessly says to Sheila that she must be careful with her new engagement ring, Sheila responds to this overbearing remark with innocent passion, saying she'll never let it go. Then, when Mr. Burling is giving one of his speeches, he pauses saying, "Are you listening, Sheila?" And she sweetly replies, "I was." What these exchanges show is that even though Sheila is in her early 20s and soon to be a married woman, she's still very much a child in the eyes of her parents, and what's more, she's comfortable being perceived this way. This parent-child dynamic starts to change very rapidly after the inspector's arrival, and Sheila's natural curiosity seems to help facilitate her transformation. Upon entering the drawing room and catching the tail end of one of the inspector's comments, Sheila asks 6 questions during her next 5 lines. Her natural reaction to the news is to become rather distressed, but she also continues to ask the inspector very pertinent questions, such as, was the girl quite young and pretty? By asking all these questions, Sheila is active in developing her own character. She doesn't wait to be told all the news or dragged into the situation. She takes the initiative and involves herself. The fact that she addresses the questions to the inspector shows that she wants to hear the truth directly from the main source, rather than through the filtered language that her parents might use. When the inspector turns his investigation directly towards Sheila, she shows a very mature attitude, in that she tells her story frankly and is ready to accept her blame. Sheila admits she's already had misgivings about what she's done and tried to discuss them with her father, but that he didn't seem to think it amounted to much. Afterwards, she felt rotten about her behaviour, so it's unsurprising she's so ready to reveal everything to the inspector. Mr. Burling brushed Sheila's concerns aside and made them seem trivial and childish, whereas Gould takes her confession seriously. Up until Gould's visit, Sheila has been meek and happy to accept her role as child, but when the inspector starts to question Mrs. Burling, Sheila has to change the dynamics of her relationship with her mother. She takes on the role of parent as she perceives the danger of the situation long before Mrs. Burling does. Sheila can see that Gould is leading Mrs. Burling into blaming Eric, and like any responsible adult, Sheila tries to warn against the danger, saying things like, "Mother, stop," and "Don't you see?" Mrs. Burling's too hard-headed to take advice, especially from her daughter, whom she still thinks of as a child, and does indeed fall into the trap of blaming Eric. By the end of the play, both Sheila and Eric have grown up a great deal. Unlike the others, who cling to the hope of it having been a hoax, both siblings retain their sense of shame at the events, and this is what fuels them to want to become better people. Sheila despairs at the attitude of her parents, saying, "You don't seem to have learnt anything." As the parents try and salve their consciences with excuses, Sheila persists in trying to make them feel genuine remorse. Mrs. Burling's response to this is to accuse Sheila of being childish, and here she's trying to use her language to regain the former status quo, reminding Sheila of her place in the family hierarchy. By now, Sheila has grown too much to back down, and she turns the tables on her mother and says that in fact it's Mrs. Burling who's the one who's being childish. Mr. Burling then tries to send Sheila out, again very much like a parent would with a naughty toddler, and again Sheila takes the initiative, saying that she'll be going anyhow in a minute or two, showing she now feels empowered to make her own decisions. If the audience is struck with how Sheila grows in relation to her parents, they can't help but be impressed by how she deals with Gerald. At the start of the play, Sheila seems set to become Gerald's obedient wife, and gladly accepts his proposal despite her misgivings about the time he never came near me. When Gould turns his attentions to Gerald, Sheila realises that she is about to hear her suspicions confirmed. A lesser character might react with rage or sorrow in this situation, but Sheila is extremely mature. She urges Gerald to tell the truth because Gould already knows. After Gerald has revealed his story, Sheila hands him the engagement ring, saying that they will have to start all over again. Her response is composed. She doesn't automatically want to break up, but she does acknowledge that they need to reflect on what's happened before they can consider any kind of life together. At the end of the play, Gerald shows he hasn't really listened to what Sheila said, feeling smug that the whole thing's been a hoax. He offers Sheila the ring again, and Sheila is strong enough now to refuse the offer and says it's too soon. Sheila is so poised in the face of Gerald's unbearably boorish behaviour that it's clear she's grown beyond her former fiancé. Sheila grows from a timid girl into an assertive adult, someone who is ready to admit past mistakes, make amends and strive for a better world. She is the role model for behaviour and an embodiment of Priestley's message.